Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Awesome. So before I dive right into the session, I'm sure we've had coffee, right? So I like to do a little something on stage before I get into it. So I'm going to say Africa Business Forum, and then you respond Estonia. Can we do that? All right, so in 3, 2, 1, Africa Business Forum. Estonia. Awesome. One more time. Africa Business Forum. Estonia. All right, please put your hands together. You're awesome. You're awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Africa beyond the Big Four. We'll be diving right into that shortly. But a little introduction. My name is Gerald Black. I'm an ecosystem builder and also a storyteller. I run a platform called XConnect Africa, and basically we support organizations with scaling across the continent. And I also make documentaries about different African markets, specifically markets outside the Big Four. I have a little video I would like to show you. It's a 1-minute highlight from some of my videos across Africa. So media team, please take it away.
This is Tunisia.
There's something about Namibia.
I visited Cotonou.
Live in Tunis, Tunisia for the first time for the Tunisia Ecosystem Week. It's vast, quiet, almost poetic.
We visited their companies, we spoke to their founders, and we experienced their culture.
Hi, my name is Ernest Marcus. I am CEO, founder of AirPay.
We have many things on one platform. It's like when you use closing, that's why we call it super app. You can do many things.
Welcome at Baco Motors. Baco Motors is an African electric vehicle manufacturer. We are manufacturing about 1,000 vehicles a year.
Thank you very much. We can go back to the slide. Yeah, please clap. You can put your hands together. Awesome, awesome. A lot of times when we talk about tech in Africa, we oftentimes, or even business, we oftentimes focus on the Big Four, which are Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, and Egypt. And the reason why this is termed the Big Four is because this is where we have most of our fundraising, the biggest economies in Africa, and so many other things. But outside the Big Four, we have other markets, right? We have Namibia, like I just showed you in the documentary. We have Rwanda, we have Benin, we have Senegal. We have so many other markets, right? And these markets do not really get spotlighted. So I'll just give you a little summary about those markets. For example, in Namibia, they are known to have one of the most stable economies, and that is because since their independence in 1990, governance hasn't changed. It's the same party that has been ruling. So they are known to have one of the most stable economies in Africa. In Tunisia is known to have some of the highest literacy levels in Africa. And a lot of us don't know, but the biggest exits on the African continent today are from Tunisia, and that is InstaDeep and Expensia. And InstaDeep was acquired for over $600 million. It's one of the highest in Africa today. But it's a very small country, and a lot of people don't talk about it. The previous speaker spoke about Benin. Benin is known to have one of the highest government influence in technology, trying to onboard a lot of citizens, support the ecosystem, and all of that, right? But Africa and Europe actually do have a lot in common. We have multiple languages across borders. For example, Nigeria, where I come from, we have over 500 languages in one country. We have very strong cultural identities. We are relationship-driven societies. We thrive on relationship We have a deep appreciation for community. We like to commune, we like to hang out, we like to drink beer, and we like to have jollof rice. Business is often relationship-led, and cross-border collaboration actually matters. But here's the big difference. Europe is integrated, and Africa is fragmented. In Africa, we have 54 countries, which are also 54 different markets, which are also 54 different cultures, which are also 54 different economies, 54 different regulatory environments, 54 different buyer behavior, and of course, 54 different trust levels. The common denominator in Africa is trust. And now the big question is, how do we build trust? Because trust is actually what matters. In Africa, trust moves opportunities faster than ads. Trust opens doors. Trust creates partnerships. Trust accelerates market entry. And of course, trust builds ecosystems. So now the big question is, how do we build trust across these markets? Because we've established that Africa is so large, and it's so many markets in one continent. And every single market you go to is a completely different environment. It's a completely different buyer behavior. It's completely different. So the question is, how do you build trust in Africa? First off, you have to come to the ground. You have to visit these different markets. You have to work with local partners. Oftentimes, I tell people, when you're coming, don't assume. You never assume that you think because something worked in Nigeria, it will work in Namibia. Because the culture is different, the buyer behavior is completely different. You hire local talent, and you build relationships before transactions. What actually builds markets? Ecosystems are built through people, and that is communities, policymakers, investors, events. That's why events like this matter. You know, I was having a conversation with Eha, I think yesterday. Eha, thanks for having me, by the way. And thank you, Ambassador. Eha, I was asking, why is this not streamed online so we can watch it? And Eha said, if we stream, you wouldn't come. So these events are great. It's good to have them. Shared experiences, of course, actually matters. Operators, you have to work with operators. You have to work with founders. And you also have to work with storytellers. And sometimes, the best go-to-market strategy is food, drinks, and conversations. Because like I said, you have to first of all build trust. And how do you build trust without connecting? How do you build trust without meeting people? How do you build trust without sharing a glass of Vanatalin? You know, real relationships create real opportunities, right? And that is why some of the strategies that I personally recommend is, you know, when you come to Africa, you host dinners, invite stakeholders, invite builders, invite founders, have dinners, bring ecosystems together. That's the highlight of what I do on the continent. I work with so many partners hosting this kind of events. Create spaces for collaboration, let people meet, because when you meet, you have conversations and you can identify mutual, opportunities. And let people build trust naturally, because relationship comes first. Mutually beneficial partnerships always wins. Africa does not want extraction. Africa wants collaborations. The best partnerships create shared value, empower local ecosystems, invest long-term, and build with communities, not just around communities. The future of Africa will not be built by a few countries alone, and you have to note that, because a lot of times the emphasis are on the big four. But I also want you to know Africa's next chapter will come from connected ecosystems, and that is why I love this kind of gatherings. Emerging markets, cross-border collaborations, shared visibility, and of course, long-term trust. The next big African opportunity may currently be in the markets that nobody is paying attention to. If you want to succeed in Africa, don't just build into markets, build relationships, build trust, and build with people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gerald. I think because it's 4 p.m., I picked one thing from your slide: eat, drink, and sleep.
I didn't say sleep.
Okay, oh, sorry. And conversations is something that is very key.
Absolutely.
I think I would like to invite a question or two about 54 cultures, 54 languages, and even in those 54, there's 800 other dialects.
In Nigeria, we have 500
500
languages.
So
Yes.
other dialects. So maybe one or two questions before we move. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gerald, you've spoken about your experience across the African continent. For the last couple of years, we've been talking about Africa Free Continental Trade Area, and it doesn't seem to be happening. What do you think is the biggest challenge? I mean, you've talked about Europe being integrated and Africa being fragmented. What's stopping us from creating those seamless borders and that seamless trade across the continent?
I think first off, thank you very much for that question. I think first off, policies actually do matter. We have organizations like the African Union and also smaller organizations across different areas in Africa. And we have to constantly engage with such organizations because they are the ones that actually have the power to drive some of these policies that we're actually always pushing for. But outside the policymakers, outside the government, we have to continuously look for opportunities to engage. And that is why, for example, early this year, I launched a program called Crossover. And the goal of the program, as the name implies, is to bring founders across different markets together, right? So it's a virtual session, 10 weeks virtual program, where different founders can come together. You know, founders from Nigeria can connect with founders from Benin and other markets and explore potential opportunities to do business. You know, thanks to technology, it's possible to do all of those. So we have to individually continue to look for those opportunities while we wait on the government and hope that someday we'll see the real change.
Okay, any other burning question? Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Gerald, for your
Thanks,
presentation. And my question is, now you've been working with Estonians. You were with us in Kenya for Latitude 59, which, by the way, is going to take place in December of this year as well. So just a little plug, 3rd and 4th of December. And now you're here in Estonia. So you've given some tips, you know, about the general, but now you know a little bit about the Estonian ecosystem. What would be your sort of, you know, tip or takeaway or sort of what can Estonians do in these markets outside of the Big Four?
First off, Estonians need to continue to participate in events like this because relationship building is key. You need to get insights on what's happening in those markets. And the only way to have those insights is to engage, have conversations, you know, over coffee, and find out what's happening. Secondly, would be visiting those markets, right? Estonians need to come. I've been asking Lizzie to come to Nigeria and see what's happening, you know, because when you visit, you get a sense of the vibe and a sense of the opportunities that exist, right? So it's not so easy to understand what's happening in those markets from here. You have to come to the markets. And when you come, you can have a very, you know, intimate session with founders. You can have dinner. You can, you know, host events and find out what's happening and find out how organizations here can actually plug into the opportunities that exist in Africa and, you know, of course, markets in Africa.
Okay, I see one last question, then we can move to the next.
Hi, good afternoon. I'd like to ask, now just to follow up on the ambassador's question, You mentioned a lot about the events and so on and so forth. What would it take to bring people or founders or even organizations from outside the Big Four to participate in such forums? Because as you see, the majority are somewhat from the Big Four, while others are also from the regions right next to the Big Four. So what would it take for that? And also, what does Estonia need to do, aside from a tip, to pull them in? And are there any different attractive methods to bring them to such forums?
All right, thank you very much. I think from my experience, the most work that you need to do is to identify the organizations that actually, because these markets are small, and finding some of the players individually might be a bit difficult. But if you can find some of the organizations that are actually making things happen in these markets, like for example, when I go to markets to do a documentary, I don't just show up. I reach out to hubs. I reach out to the government, department that's responsible for technology. I reach out to, major stakeholders that you find on LinkedIn, for example, and then I engage and I let them know, oh, I'm looking to come to Namibia, for example, and I would like to engage, some of these hubs, some of these policymakers, some of these founders. Who can you direct me to, right? So a lot of times, 90% of the work actually lies in identifying the partners, and then you can extend the opportunities to say, oh, look, we're looking at doing something, we would like to partner with you, and then it becomes easier from there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Round of applause for.
Thank you. Thank you
for
very
that
much.
presentation. Is there?